Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Beaver Banter podcast. I'm Nick Daschel and I cover Oregon State football for the Oregonian and OregonLive. Plenty to discuss from Saturday night's thriller at Reser Stadium where the Beavers beat Colorado State 39-31 in double overtime. It was the first overtime game in Reser since 2016 and I believe the first double overtime game at Reser since 2014 against Utah. Joining me as always is former Oregon State defenseman Isaac Hodgins. Isaac, I can't remember. I think you said you were going to watch the game on TV. We weren't going to be able to be at the stadium. I assume that's what happened.
Yeah, I was watching the game on TV. Unfortunately, I couldn't be there, but I'm kind of jealous of all the fans for missing that one. You know, I'm jealous of you. I wish I was in that stadium just hearing the fans, and that looked like it was electric.
Yeah, it was. I mean, for three quarters, it was. I mean, I'll be honest, it was pretty dull for three quarters.
Yeah.
I don't know what you thought, but I mean,
Well, that's kind of what you live for, though. Is right towards the end of the game, I guarantee you, there's some people who left that game who are like, "Why did we leave?"
well, I did look over and I noticed Oregon State announced that was the second largest student attendance ever for a game at Reser. And I noticed the ends had pretty well cleared out like in the third quarter. And I'm wondering, those are the games that you just know you kick yourself for leaving early because,
Right. Yeah.
you just knew they were going to spill out of the field if Oregon State won the game afterward, just because of the way it finished. But
Yeah.
so that was the first.
You could see on TV there were some people leaving. And I was just like, man, you guys got to stay. You got to stay. But
Yeah,
glad
I
we
mean, I
pulled
could see leaving if you're down 35-10 or something, but although,
Yeah,
as we learned last night at Cal, even that lead's not safe. But
exactly.
um,
That was a good game too.
so that was the first time you've watched a game. You've been to you've been to all the home games, right? Except
Yeah,
for
yeah. So that was the first home game I watched on TV.
this is the
Uh,
first time you've watched the game on the CW, which is doing most of the Oregon State games
I,
this year because the San
I'll be
Diego
honest. Yeah, I like the CW. I thought those. I mean, the commentators Ryan Leaf and Nigel Burton, those guys knew what they were talking about. Um,
yeah.
I was I was ecstatic watching those guys. I was like, these guys know what they're talking about.
It seems like the reviews are kind of mixed, and I never know what to believe from Beaver fans sometimes, because all they need to do is have one slide against Oregon State, and it's like, well, they're East Coast bias, or Oregon State poor us, and I try to look at it sort of with without any passion one way or the other, and I haven't really watched much, obviously, because I'm at the stadium, but I have them taped. I keep meaning to sit down and watch, the tape broadcast, but I just haven't had time. But I did see a little bit last night. I saw the ref cam. That seemed a little.
Yeah,
That
the
seemed.
ump cam was a little hit or miss. You couldn't see much from it. I don't know why they kept using that, but
Yeah.
I thought the overall experience was pretty good. You know, it was no ESPN or what have it, but I liked
But
the
you thought
CW.
you thought the announcers were pretty good, and um, Nigel and Ryan Leaf, they were pretty good on that one.
Yeah, they were. They knew what they're talking about. I mean, they were talking about the zone blitzes, and uh, they were just. I mean, you could tell that those guys knew football, which I
Yeah.
liked. To some of the commentators, you could kind of tell like, these guys don't really know ball. That's more kind of like a fan for the fans. So
It is kind of funny with when former players go and they become color guys, and while they were players, they kind of look at us in the media like, yeah, you guys really don't know what we know ball, you don't. But then when they get on sometimes they get on these games, they talk just like the media. They don't really
yeah,
break it
exactly.
down. They don't really break, so you kind of appreciate the ones that actually do go next level and actually break it down.
All you fans out there, I will tell you, the only media guy who knows what they're talking about is Nick Daschel. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
There you
Well,
go.
I appreciate that, but I probably a few other people do. But yeah, there's
Yeah,
yeah. By the way,
jokes.
I
I'm
did.
joking.
Friday night I covered I went to the Michigan State game to do something on
Oh yeah,
Jonathan Smith and
I didn't keep up with that one. How'd that one go? I'm
oh, it was
assuming it
ugly.
didn't go well for Michigan State because Oregon's now ranked number.
No, it was ugly. But I pretty much talked to every Oregon State person I could remember afterward, and I didn't really like Jonathan came off the field and he kind of went out of his way to come over and talk to me and shake my hand. I hadn't seen him since that you know that day in Corvallis history when he
Yeah.
left. I talked to Jack Velling. I saw him. Talked to him a bit. Talked to Brian Lindgren in the press box.
Oh, that's
Saw
awesome.
Blue Adams and Jim Halchek. I talked to him a little bit. So yeah, it was good seeing those guys. I mean, I didn't know what
Yeah.
to expect afterward. I mean, when you get your rear end kicked all over the field for 60 minutes, you never know what kind of mood people are going to be in. But yeah, they
What
seemed
was the score?
well. It was 31-10, but I mean, it could have easily been 48-7. It was. Michigan State picked off two passes in the end zone.
Oh,
And it was, I want to say after three quarters, it was something like 450 to 130 in yards. Or
oh,
yeah,
okay.
Aiden Childs had a heck of a time. He had, yeah. I mean, it's clear they've got a rebuilding project going on there. Maybe it's not at the level of the 2018 Beavers, but
Yeah,
they got some.
that's a different project right there.
Yeah, that was right. That was taking it back to the studs and and rebuilding the whole
Yeah,
thing.
that was
Um,
down to the foundation on that one.
yeah, yeah. Well, you were there.
Oh
You were
yeah.
there. You were there at the start, man.
Oh
Um,
yeah, it was a tough one.
so
But I mean,
anyway,
for this being a quote unquote rebuild year for Oregon State Beavers, I mean, we're freaking killing it. I'm loving it. I mean, these
yeah,
guys
I
are.
don't. I mean, did you think it was a rebuild this year? I didn't.
I thought
I
it would
mean,
be.
did you? I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
I guess it is
4-1.
to some degree, but I just feel like in this era now, everybody's got a bunch of transfers, and it's like
Yeah, I
it
mean,
feels
it's
like
one. It could go one way or the other. You could end up like Florida State. You know what I mean? Where you got all these
yeah.
high level transfers, and then you do how you do, but you
I
never
mean,
know.
it's hard to call this a rebuild when Trent Bray is standing in front of the team in November at the end of November saying, I think we've got a team that can contend for the CFP. You know, it's
Yeah,
a little hard to be calling it a rebuild, but I guess it is what
yeah. I mean, from the outside, that's how I saw it, obviously, but
Yeah,
you know, I'm not on the inside.
yeah. Well, any team that loses Isaac Hodgins is got
Oh
some
yeah,
issues. So
well, yeah, right. Huge, lost
uh,
a huge piece there.
yeah. Um, Anyway, we were talking about the atmosphere in the stadium being electric last night. It's probably the best. I don't know. I was trying to think what the best one is since then. Maybe the USC in 22 that
Hmm.
night when it was just even though it's only half the stadium that night, it was pretty crazy. But what's it like on the field when Reeser is just rolling on both sides and it's at nighttime? What do you remember being on the field? What's it like to hear and things like
I
that?
mean, when you're on defense and then you're on the sideline and the offense is on the field, um, just like you get the goosebumps from you almost become one of the fans where you're trying to add to the crowd noise, uh, just because the energy is so electric. Uh, obviously you're not cheering while they're in the huddle or whatnot, but there's a big play that happens. Everyone's running up and down the sideline. We're hooting and hollering. Uh, so I mean,
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome. You almost turn into a fan when you're when you're on the sideline just watching these guys roll on offense.
yeah. But like when you're on when the offense is on the field and the students are up and yelling and everything, and you're on the sideline, kind of in your little huddle, and the coach and coach is trying to talk about whatever you want to do next. Is it hard? How hard is it to hear even in that situation?
I mean, you're really kind of locked in. The biggest part is you got to look at someone's mouth while they're talking, and you kind of get like almost you're getting the captions on like the bottom of the screen. You're trying to
Oh,
read their mouth a little bit,
yeah,
but you're trying to read the words. Uh, but it's just when you're in that situation, it's double overtime. Like you're locked in. Like this is your tunnel vision. So yeah,
yeah,
everything's loud, but it's you're kind of just tuning it out, honestly.
yeah. Well, might as well get on to the game. There
Oh
was
yeah,
there was good and not so good last night. I mean, it was a win for sure and worth being celebrated. But we have to kind of look at both things from last night, and might as well we'll start with the good stuff, and we'll get this out of the way. Oregon State has a tight end that can catch the ball. Aren't you
they
excited,
have a
Isaac?
tight end, man. It's alive and well. And almost it made me a little sad that first play. That was the first play where the interception happened. That was wide delay, and so
Yeah.
they did
Oh, was that
they
wide
did
delay?
that was wide delay. So I was like, no, like they did the play we said they should do, and they threw a pick on it. It was kind of forced, but they stayed with the tight end game. And then shoot, what about that touchdown to shoot? What was it overtime yet when JT caught that touchdown?
No, it wasn't a touch. It was a 2-point conversion.
It was a two
The
point conversion. That's right.
the
I
last, it
mean,
was the last, yeah, the last points were the 2-point conversion.
Nick, one could argue that the tight end play won the game. You could make that argument. The tight ends won the game with our tight end attack. That's what I'm talking about. Tight end we're back, baby. It made me
This is the,
think, man. It made me think maybe there was so much media pressure that they were like, hey, maybe we start throwing to the tight ends.
you know, funny you say that the tight end won the game. There was somebody at Oregon State pretty high up, and I won't mention the person's name, but they said, "What won the game last night? The chainsaw noise." And I went,
Nah,
"No way." There was a
tight ends
lot
won
of
the game,
chainsaw
baby.
noise, but they thought the chainsaw noise won that game. Uh, Yeah, I mean, I yeah, after that first mishap on the tight end, I should watch it on a replay, but I don't know if the ball was thrown behind,
It was
Jermaine,
just
or
it was a tight window. It was kind of forced.
yeah, he
That's it.
kind of got his hand. He looked like well, I mean, if in that situation, as a player, you got to catch the ball, I guess. And he
Yeah,
didn't.
it was a good play defensively. I'll just say, but
Yeah, but
I was just even the guys on CW were saying they were like, man, they need to get these tight ends involved. Like they were asking questions to the coaches, like, why aren't you using the tight ends as much? And then there was like a light switch that changed where there was more receptions from a tight end in that one game than over every single game prior. I mean, come on
we
now.
Yeah, Jermaine had the two longest receptions of the night last night, the 19-yarder and the 16-yard. But I thought the 2-point conversion might have actually been his best one because it required some concentration because he ran right into Jeremiah Noga
Yeah,
coming in. He ran straight in and ran right into him, and it didn't sway him from his route. He just stayed with it, and um,
yeah,
and
that was almost a disaster of a play. But hey, we
yeah,
got it done. Got it done.
yeah. Well, yeah, I kind of thought that. I mean, I don't know. You could come up with a million plays that were the key play of the game, but I think getting that 2-point conversion, taking a full 8-point lead at that point, now you force Colorado State to have to do score and then score again, and that
Yeah,
they put a
that's
lot
why
of pressure on Colorado State there by scoring that 2-point conversion. So you got to
for
give
sure.
for sure.
That's a hard situation to be in.
I mean, I thought I'm not going to say he was the player of the game. I have another guy in mind, but he was certainly among the top guys in that game.
I
Uh,
hope you guys interviewed him after the game.
I asked for him. Yeah, he came in. He talked. He talked.
Okay, good. All right,
Very
good.
hum, very humble, very humble. He always is.
Yeah,
Um,
JT's a
so
good guy.
yeah, no. Now they seem to build on that. I think now. So the last 2 weeks, I've asked Trent about this both times, and he said that Purdue they didn't use the tight end there because they played man defense, and he said Colorado State, there's more opportunities because they were playing mostly zone. There are a lot of openings in the zone. Is that your experience that it's hard to run the tight end when you're playing man defense versus a zone?
Well, I think it kind of depends on who you're gonna be manned up with on the tight end. I mean, if you think you have a mismatch there, like if a linebacker is covering your tight end, um, if you believe you have a mismatch there, then that actually works to your advantage. But obviously, coaching staff may feel a little bit differently about
Yeah.
that. I think JT. I think we showed that it's a valuable. It opens up your offense even more. I mean, when you got that tight end sneaking out, I mean, you got to pull one or two defenders out of that zone.
Yeah.
It's going to open up stuff behind them, and it's going to open up a lot.
Well, there's certainly room for somebody to step in as a number 2 receiver on the team, because Trent
Right.
Walker's obviously become one, and nobody really has become that second guy yet. So maybe it's
Yeah.
Jermaine here in as we get through the season.
I hope so.
So go ahead.
No, I said I hope so. Just don't abandon the wide delay, man. Don't give up on it. I know it didn't work out that first play.
Was that the only
Just keep
time you
just
saw
keep
him
coming
run it
back to it.
last night? Did you see him run it any other time last night?
No, just no, it was just the interception. And then they didn't run it again.
Oh, um,
Yeah.
another thing that obviously was good coming out of the game is how resilient the Beavers were. They were up 21-10. Next thing you know, they're down 24-21. Then they're trailing in overtime. He came back from that, and they took the lead and battled back when Colorado State was at first and goal at the 2 in the second overtime. But what I'm wondering now on that is, coaches and players always love to talk about how resilient their team is, and of course, if you win a game like that, you could say that till the cows come home. But we know not every team has that quality. I mean, but what do you think leads to a team that's able to shake off a bad play or a bad series and just get focused back onto what they need to do next? That can't be every team out there. It's got to be a quality or two about it, teams that lead them to be able to be that resilient team.
Yeah, I think in order to be that resilient team, you've got to kind of have some scars. That's what resiliency is, being able to get knocked down, get back up. I think that Oregon game, that's a scar we got. Uh, and I think with a young group of guys, uh, with a lot of players on your team that don't have a lot of experience, that resiliency is going to be built this year. It's going to be built within games where, it's a tight game. And if you if you're not focused on this series here, you're not gonna see through here. It comes from when you lose badly to Oregon. Do you come back the next week and are you still focused on the Oregon game, or are you now focused on Purdue?
Yeah.
Uh, and so I think that's the resiliency's got to be built uh, for these guys since they're so young. It's got to be built from game to game and from series to series, like you're saying.
Right.
And it'll happen, and I think I've been seeing it. And then I think another huge part of it is like the injuries, like with the injuries on the offensive line, uh, the injuries that you have throughout the season. Like, are we gonna see a huge drop off from the 1 to the 2 guy who's the next guy up, or are we gonna see, the next guy up kind of step into that role and there's not a
Yeah.
beat that's missed?
I thought one example of that last night was Melvin Jordan. He got hit with that pass
Yeah,
interference in the second overtime, and then to set up the first and goal at the 2. And the very next play, he blasted through the line and knocked the running back
yeah,
for a yard loss. And that sort of seemed to set the tempo there for that final series where they were able to get 4 really good defensive plays and close out the game.
yeah, and that's where you need it. I mean, he needed to play downhill, especially in that area of the field. I mean, if you could get stalemated with the running back, but if you let him drive you a step backwards, it's a touchdown versus you finishing that play. And I mean, that was a beautiful form tackle if
Yeah.
I've ever seen one. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was huge, and it was good to see because I feel like a lot of the times they were kind of playing on the linebackers were playing a little bit too side to side, and not a lot of just like shoot your hole, shoot your gap. kind of play downhill. So that was
Yeah.
good to see in a big situation.
Well, then we, in addition to that, we've been talking about this team has not been making plays in the backfield. And last night they made had a season high 8 tackles for loss. I think Andre Jordan
Yeah,
had 2. I think Samisi had
Samisi had
2.
two. Yeah,
But they had 8, which is eight's pretty good. I mean, if you could do that every game, I think that's kind of what you would be shooting for. I would
yeah.
think. Um,
No, Samisi, he was one of the, in my eyes, one of the players of the game on the defensive side of the ball. He technically had three because he took one of the offensive linemen on that play where Nicolosi his knee hit the ground when he was trying to do the exchange. That happened because Samisi took his offensive lineman and drove him into the backfield about 2 yards, which got his feet tangled up with the quarterback,
all
and
right.
that was technically a tackle for loss, but I'm sure they didn't give it to him credited, but he made that play by just, and he had a few plays where he was playing vertical, knocking his guy into the backfield. And that's the kind of it just felt like this Oregon State defense was a lot more similar to what I've seen in the past. I saw a lot more blitzing, a lot more zipping and zapping. The problem is we were getting cut off a little bit out of gaps when we were doing
Yeah.
those gap exchanges.
So, and then we saw a continued evolution from the quarterback Giovanni McCoy. I mean, he's starting to become a dual threat type. He really wasn't that kind of guy at Idaho, and he didn't start off this year as a guy that was trying to move the ball with his legs. But the last 2 games, I mean, last week it was, or not 2 weeks ago, it was against Purdue. It was through the pitch and getting out on the edge. And last night it was just
Different beast.
RPOs pretty much, where he was able to make a decision whether to keep it or give. And I mean, he ran 10 times for 91 yards last night. I don't know that we're going to see that again, but um, yeah, I mean, that was big in that game last night.
That was, I mean, and that's so hard as a defense of where, you've got five eligible receivers you got to cover, and then when you got a quarterback who's back there and everyone's down the field, and then he just zips it up the field. I mean, that's hard. Are you going to pull someone out of coverage to quarterback spy him? And then even if you do
Uh,
that, I mean, McCoy is so fast. Even he can outrun your quarterback spy. So it's going to be a real problem that people are going to have to game plan now. Um, I think what people are going to start doing is they're going to start trying to find a way to corral him to make him throw the ball. So what McCoy is going to have to do to take a jump in his game is he's going to have to run to throw. Like he's going to have to escape out of the pocket, not necessarily to go run, but look for an opening somewhere, kind of scramble drill. Uh, like guys like
yeah,
Cam Ward are super good at. Uh, that I
yeah.
think if McCoy could do that, we'll see. I think he'll be a real threat for sure.
And then, Jam Griffin was hurt last night. We don't really know, what his situation is, if it's short term, long term. But regardless, Anthony Hankerson's going to have to. He's going to be the guy back there. He had 26 carries last night, which is a career high. I mean, I don't know if he can continue at that pace, but I mean, he was effective at it last night.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good guy to have back there to kind of carry the load. But obviously, you would hope to get Jam back as fast as possible and try to get that two-headed monster back in there. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
but
they know
yeah,
they.
I mean, running that much for a running back, that's a lot of beat up on him for sure.
Yeah, they. I know that Gundy liked the 18 to 20 carries for both he and Jam, and if
Hmm.
Jam can't play, now they got to get Saladin Allah ready to go, and he's a freshman, and he's got some talent, but I don't foresee him carrying it 18 to 20 times. So Hankerson may be looking at 20 to 25 carries a game for however long Jam is out of the lineup. And again, I won't really don't have any idea at this point what his situation is.
Yeah,
But
I mean, Yeah, I hope that guy's okay. That was a big loss for sure. Uh, it looked like it was
How does
main.
that change? How does that change the running game with Hankerson? Because he's not Jam's more effective getting outside, isn't he? And Hankerson's more kind of in between the tackles. I mean, I know he can get outside some, but he's not. They're a little different running
Yeah,
styles.
I don't know if it changes anything. It looked like they kind of stuck to the same game plan of what they were doing before. Um, I think it just changes the running game and the fact that he's not as fresh. He's not
Yeah,
as fresh play after play. I mean, you could have Jam go 2 plays, and then you could have Hank go 2 plays, and they're both fresh every time they get in there, and they're both trying to score. They're both trying to have a 50-yard touchdown every time. So uh,
yeah.
that's the hard
But I
part.
mean, it's as soon as you say that, of course, his best run of the night was his last run where he ran 25 yards for a touchdown. So on his 26
Right.
carries. So who's to
Yeah.
say? I mean, that was the first thing I asked him last night. Are you tired? He says, no. But yeah,
Yeah. Heck no. He's like, feed me more. I'm ready for 50 carries.
yeah. I don't know. I'm thinking 26 is they probably don't want to see him carry more than 26.
Yeah. I
Uh,
mean, for
but we'll
longevity wise, obviously college football is a long game nowadays. It's a long season. So
yeah. Another good thing to come out of the game was Everett Hayes put one between the pipes to force overtime last night, and
yeah.
that had to be huge for his confidence.
Yeah.
I know some of the issues aren't all on Everett Hayes, but it still comes back to him. That's people aren't going to go, oh, the snap was bad. Oh, the guy that held it didn't put it the right place, or we didn't block this guy. It's always going to come back to Everett Hayes missed a whatever field goal. It's
Right.
that's and so I felt like that
No,
said to be
that I mean
huge.
that
It
was
was
that
tough.
kick. Yeah, that kick was huge. I was hoping mainly for this podcast's sake that he made that field goal so that we could get some confidence here in the media and our special teams uh, and our special teams ability. So it was good
Yeah.
to see him nail that field goal for sure.
I mean, we know he's got talent. I mean, he's kicked a 60-yarder before. It's
Yeah,
just it's just the consistency. I mean, he's a career 57% field goal kicker. So,
that still
um,
blows my mind. I didn't know it was that low. That
yeah.
blows my mind. And like in
So,
my mind, it was like when I was on the field, when I was on the team, I was like, oh, if ever comes out there, we're making it.
yeah.
Uh, but I
No,
guess
it's yeah. I mean, we know he can kick from distance. It's when you send a guy out there for a 35-yarder, you got to feel like he's going to make it. He's got to make it, and that's where I guess that's where his game has got to in these last 7 games. He's got to be able to do that because there's going to come. I mean, that's what last night came down to. He delivered when they needed it, but that's not going to be the last time. I have a feeling. I mean, there's going to be more of those. I would think.
yeah. I mean, well, how many college kickers do you think could go out there and nail a 44-yard field goal and then feel confident about it? I don't think there's many, to be honest. So I thought that was a huge win.
Oh, they all think they can make it. Come on.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
all walk out there thinking they're going to drill it
yeah,
until
that's true.
they don't. Until they don't.
Young and
I'm,
dumb, baby.
yeah.
To be
I
young
mean,
again.
selective memory. Um,
Yep.
anything else from last night that stood out to you on the plus side?
Ooh, plus side. No, I mean, I think we were hitting on all cylinders. I mean, McCoy. I mean, yeah, I got some negatives, but I
Well,
thought,
we're gonna get to that,
yeah,
but
I mean, a few rushing touchdowns from your quarterback never hurts. So I mean, you
yeah,
can't keep
yeah.
from that.
All right. Well, on the flip side, I mean, number one, the run defense, man.
Yep. Yeah.
if if
We
things
got
don't
saved.
change,
We got saved a few times, which was nice.
well,
Some of the
it's more like they're not getting gashed. It's just inconsistent. It's like late in the
yeah.
game, like in the overtime, it was great. But I mean,
Right.
they're giving up almost 6 yards a carry on the season, And
Yeah, the problem was I think we were losing the first down battle way too much. Like, I mean, when you have a team come out and they get 6 to 8 yards on the first down, like you're already in a losing position as a defense. You gotta on first down, you gotta come in, you gotta either get a stop and or a 2 yard gain at best, and kind of put them in that range of okay, they gotta throw the ball. They can't just pick and choose what they're gonna do. And it felt like Colorado State they were winning every first down. It felt like, unfortunately. Uh,
yeah, I mean, I was just the first two games of the year, the I thought the run defense was pretty good. Now, granted, um, Idaho State doesn't really run the ball that much, but San Diego State, that was kind of their bread and butter. They had the guy that was the number one. He's the active leader in rushing yards in the NCAA, and I thought they did a good job against it. But but Oregon, Purdue, Colorado State, it's been kind of a sieve. just,
yeah,
let's be honest.
I
Um,
think from what I'm seeing, and I was able to see it a little more clearer watching on TV, is that people are getting cut out of their gaps. You're doing an entire defensive line movement, right, where the whole defensive line they're all moving over a gap. So we're moving, and then you're gonna have so everyone has a specific gap that they have to be in. And so what's happening is the two people on the front side is they're getting to their gap, but then this guy on the back end, he's trying to get across the face of the offensive lineman. The offensive lineman is gaining ground and cutting him off, and now there's a huge gaping hole, and the running back's just finding that every time. So that's the problem with moving a lot is if one person is out of their gap, it screws up the whole defense, and
yeah,
that's where and you don't have a second level because the linebackers they're hitting a gap too because they're trusting that you're going to get across this guy's face and get the ball pushed back to them. But if the ball never gets pushed back to them and it stays front side, you're screwed. Um, and so that looked like what was happening a lot, unfortunately.
the issue is going to be Oregon State hasn't really even seen the meat of the schedule yet with the good running teams. I mean, UNLV is
Don't
top
remind me of
10.
that last game of the season.
I mean, Boise State's number 2 in rushing yards. You
Yeah,
know who they got.
don't remind me of him.
Jade Knott is going to be he's going to be a handful of Cal. UNLV's in the top 10 in rushing yards. Air Force is not maybe as good as they've been, but they still can run the ball.
Yeah,
Nevada's number 30 is number 36 in the country in rushing yards. And
right.
it's going to be a slew of teams that are going to run the ball, and if Oregon State doesn't
Yeah,
get that figured out, it's going to be there's not going to be. I mean, they got 4 wins right now. They got to get to 6 for a bowl game. There's nothing ahead. None of these last 7. You go, this is a W. You can put it in pen. It's that none of them are at this point.
right.
They all look like they got there's some issues. San Jose State may not run the ball, but I mean, they put what 50 something on Washington State and in their game and almost won that game. And
Yeah.
I mean, so I think, but if you could just get the run defense, if you could get the run defense, maybe not, to the point where you're a top 10 or something like, but just get them slowed down a little bit so you can get off the field and get your offense back on where you're controlling things. That
Yeah.
just
The problem is, it also seems like no one is setting the edge. I don't know what, I mean, as a defensive player, everyone who's on the field has to have the ability to set the edge without, like, it's like having a house with no walls. If you got a house with no walls, anyone could just come in from any area and angle. I mean, that's kind of what's happening is because there's no one setting the edge. The corner's not setting the edge. The outside linebacker's not setting the edge. The inside linebacker's not setting it. It's like it's just kind of free game, and so it just looks like what teams are doing versus us is they're kind of just going a wide zone, and they're hoping either no one sets the edge or someone gets cut off on the back end, and so the running back's either just going to keep it to the front side or he's going to wait. He's going to be patient, see someone get cut off, and hit the B gap or whatever it may
yeah,
be.
yeah.
And that's kind of it's just unsound. is what it just looks unsound. If everyone just did their job and just be where they need to be, I mean, you have a sound defense.
Right.
Simple as that.
Well, I'm sure we're not telling. I'm sure we're not saying anything the coaches aren't saying already tonight in the
Yeah.
team meeting. So, getting off the field on third down, Oregon State's been pretty good in this area, and they were good on that through three quarters. Colorado State was 0 for 5, and then the fourth quarter, man, it was third down was just the money down for Colorado State. I
Yeah.
don't see that as a long-term issue, particularly if they start getting some of these guys back. Which kind of leads to my next point, was the injuries or some of the issue on this thing. That Oregon State's down 5 DBs right now. I mean, they were without Jaden
Really.
Robinson, Kobe Singleton, obviously Noble Thomas, a couple of Amarian York, and I'm blanking on the other one. It seemed like Jack Kanye was in and out last night too, but
Is
so
Jaden
there's some.
long term or?
I don't think so, but I'm not positive. But I don't think so. Um, so, but the third down thing was an issue last night. But by and large, they've been pretty good on that down. So that's one where
They'll,
I'm going.
they'll get that cleaned up, and it's the only thing is if you could win on first and second down, third down is easy. I mean, it really is. The problem is when you get into 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, those are problem downs, right? But if you could get them into 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, I have 100% confidence that we could handle that.
Yeah,
That you just got to win on first down.
yeah. Well, and then the third thing on the flip side was the passing game is still
Yeah,
seems like it's in the baby stages. It, to win some of these games down the stretch, you're going to have to throw the ball and beat some teams that way at some point. I don't know
yeah,
when. And Trent, like I said, Trent Walker has been reliable pretty much every game, but no one has stepped up and taken a number 2 role yet. I mean, there's guys out there you think are capable, but I don't know I don't know how much you could watch from TV last night to see, what was open and what wasn't. But that's an issue that's going to have to not get fixed, but it just has to evolve, I guess.
yeah. And I think honestly, getting those tight ends involved is going to help because those tight ends are running a lot more shallower routes, and that's going to help. McCoy get kind of in his rhythm of not needing to do these long developing routes to where he's got to look at these route concepts and see a dig and see a post and try to see where the safety is. Like give him some little nickels and dimes and play to his strengths. Get him out of the pocket. Get him running on a naked boot with the tight end running right there, and he can just dump it off to him for a 10-yard gain. Kind of,
Yeah,
I think the biggest thing is just get him going with his legs first and foremost. Get him where he's confident, and then get him to the place to where he could. Okay, now I could play to my strength. I could relax a little bit and hit these routes because I mean, as we can all see, there's still the problem. Like wide open wide receiver, the ball's in the dirt. Like I mean, we got to be able to get everyone on the same page here and get everyone kind of jiving together.
yeah.
It's just
I mean, do you feel like the pass protection is there?
you said what was that?
Do you feel like the pass protection is there?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I haven't seen it too blaring, like where it's just like, I mean, he just has no time. It just looks like maybe he just panics a little bit, or he's just not hitting his guy.
Yeah,
Um, I'm like it didn't look like he was under a lot of just duress. Um, so I don't think that's the issue at all. Which
On
I'm
the other hand,
surprised.
on the other hand,
That's a huge plus right there. Is the offensive line play, despite all the injuries, there hasn't been a huge drop off, which is great.
yeah. On the other hand, when they did need to throw last night, which was that final drive of regulation, they did move it down the field and get in position for a field goal. So, and that took a lot
Right.
of passing. They weren't 25-yard passes, but they were able to move the ball through the air that way. So, uh, That I get if there
Yeah,
was
and I
one
think that's
positive.
right. I think that's what you have to do is you got to kind of nickel and dime your way down the field, and play to McCoy's strengths. Because I mean, it's not going to help anyone if you're just doing 25-yard routes that just he doesn't feel comfortable quite doing right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
That doesn't help anyone.
yeah. And like I said, that I mean, the injuries. I mean, we'll just have to see how this all plays out. That's always going to have an impact on performance. I know coaches hate to talk about injuries; they don't want it to be an excuse. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if you're without Jaden Robinson, if you're without certain guys, I mean, it just makes the job a little harder. So
Yeah.
see how
I'm
that
actually
goes.
pretty impressed with the back end. I mean, with the injuries they were facing, that was a good wide receiver we were playing. I mean, he was
Corey
no
Horton, yeah.
chump. So
Well,
yeah, I mean, he was good.
that's what I forgot to
He's a
mention.
Sunday
You know,
player.
the player of the game last night probably was Andre Jordan, a guy
Yeah,
I don't
come
know that
on now.
anybody was talking about as a starting cornerback going into the season, and he started every game, and I mean he took on Horton. Horton had some big plays, but Andre got a couple of tackles for loss. He made the huge play at the end of the game. I mean
Huge.
that was a touchdown, against a lot of
Yeah,
corners. He made the play.
yeah.
Uh,
And I'm on an island. No one was there to help him. There was no
no,
reinforcements coming. It was awesome. Andre Jordan's
yeah,
a good player now. He's a good player.
yeah, yeah, he is. Well, next week, we're already on the next week. Saturday, it's going to be in Nevada and in Reno at 4:30. I haven't really done a lot of research on Nevada yet. I'm going to start doing that tonight, but I do know they gave SMU all they can handle. They took a pretty good San Jose State team to the wire last night. With UNLV up next for Oregon State after the Nevada, I know I'm going to be hearing a lot of, "Oh, this is a trap game." We're gonna.
Yeah.
Do, do, what do you guys think of trap games? By the way, I hear this from fans so much, and I just, I mean, are they real?
I mean, go ask Georgia or Alabama.
Yeah, well,
Alabama got into one pretty good. I mean, it's
but
one of those things.
a true trap game is one that's before a big game, to where you're already looking ahead to the game after the one you're
Yeah,
playing.
I think it could go both ways too, where like a trap game could be where the opponent you're playing isn't too good, and so you're not too worried about them, and so you're just kind of like, hey, let me just focus on next week, right? Because these guys are we're gonna mop these guys or whatever. Um, for me, it was never a problem, but I think it could definitely. It all depends on your culture, right? If you have a
Yeah,
culture of just everyone's kind of individual doing their own thing, kind of like, hey, how can I get mine and not care about the team? Uh, but if you have a good culture where you respect all, you fear none, uh, you're not gonna fall into this trap game mentality.
yeah,
Uh, but I think it can be a real thing if you. I mean, reality of the matter is, if you go against a sucky team like Truth Room, we're gonna be in the film room and we're gonna go, hey, these guys suck, so let's dominate them. You know what I mean? Uh, but
yeah.
it's never going to be, hey, these guys suck, so let's kind of go 50%. That's never
Right.
the case.
What do you played at Nevada in 2018? You recall anything unique about that place other than it's kind of the stadium. There's nothing remarkable about the stadium, obviously, but you
No,
remember
but
anything else?
the only thing I remember is my lungs burning. My lungs were burning even on the flight home, just from the elevation and whatnot. And uh, you get kind of tired out there. But I believe that they have elevation, right? That's one thing.
Yeah, I want to say it's like 4,000. It's probably about 4,000.
Yeah, it's nothing like Colorado, but it's definitely noticeable. Uh, So that's one thing I remember. And then I just remember we lost by a field goal. So uh,
Is
Oh,
that something that is that something coaches bring up during the week when you're playing at elevation?
oh yeah, yeah, for sure. You definitely are
40
focused.
4,500 is 4,500 feet, according
Yeah, so
to
that's pretty good. That's pretty. I mean, it's not.
yeah, that's almost a mile high.
Yeah, I mean, it it's definitely something that we're always thinking about, and the biggest part is to hydrate because what people don't know is the way you take care of your body, like 48 hours to 72 hours before a game, that affects the day of the game. Uh,
Yeah.
so you gotta when you're on the plane, you gotta hydrate. When you're throughout the week, you have to hydrate. You can't just hydrate before the game because you're just gonna pee it all out. You gotta hydrate throughout that week, eat well, um, and so that's something that's definitely always an emphasis.
So that's a sneaky tip for a game at Nevada is the elevation. Yeah, I didn't really think about it. I didn't really think about elevation in Reno. I didn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't have either, but my defensive line coach played at Nevada, so he gave us the rundown, and he was like, "Hey, the elevation's not a joke up there. Like, let's make sure we're good." And then as a coach, obviously, you're rotating people. You're keeping fresh bodies in. That's the problem if we can't have like if Hank, if he's doing 25 carries a game, that might
Yeah,
turn into an issue. So we might have to look
yeah.
to diversify a bit.
On the other hand, I think well, if I remember right, you guys were down like maybe you had a rally in the fourth quarter, so you had something left. I mean, missed the
Yeah,
field goal at the end,
missed the field
but
goal.
I think they were down a couple of scores or something like that late in the game and
Yeah, I
came
forget
back
what it
and
was. I just remember missing that field goal. I think it was like a 25-yard field goal. We missed it. I was
yeah, it
just
was a
like,
little long. I think it was like 30. It
was
was
it?
probably in the mid 30s,
I
something
could
like
still
that.
see it in my mind. It looked so close, and I was like, dude, come on, we got to make this. Like, come on, man. And we missed it. I was like, dude, we just
No, it was
lost
one
it.
of those. I mean, it was one of those. I mean, it would have been one of those feel good stories because it was 2018 where you guys were coming off the it was a challenging season, so any win would have been a good win, and one
Right.
like that. I mean, you did guys eventually get the big one at Colorado, which we'll probably never forget that game, but
Never. We'll never forget that one. But
yeah,
hopefully, it
but
doesn't have to come down to that. Let's hope not.
no, but that's why they keep time, so you never know when you need the time. Like last night, they needed it. So
Right.
anyway,
That was an
all
awesome
right.
win, though.
Well, I think that's probably going to about do it for this week's podcast. You can find this pod wherever you access podcasts. You can also watch a video recording on YouTube from OregonLive. We'll have that up there on a post Monday morning. So we'll see you next week after the Nevada game.
Go Beavs.